From people whose pets saved them, to random animals treating humans like family, join me as I show you 7 animals who saved people's lives. Number 7. Lulu the pig. A pig is a perfect example of a creature you wouldn't expect to save someone, if for no other reason than you wouldn't be sure how they would do such things. But for Joanne Altman, her pig Lulu turned out to be her savior when the worst almost happened to her. It was a day just like any other, and Joanne was walking along her house when suddenly a pain gripped her chest. She was suffering from cardiac arrest and collapsed to the ground. Anyone who has suffered this condition knows that if not treated within a reasonable amount of time, the patient will die. Seeing her owner on the ground and not moving, Lulu raced to help. At first, she just looked over at her owner to see what was going on. And then, when Lulu realized that there was something very wrong, she actually raced to the nearby road and sat in the middle of it to try and lure someone back to the house. When early attempts didn't work, Lulu actually went back to check on Joanne to make sure she was still alive. She was, and so Lulu continued her attempts to get someone to the house. Eventually, a car did stop and followed the pig to her owner. And once the person found Joanne, they called in help, and Joanne was taken to the hospital where she eventually recovered, all because of Lulu. If you have a pig at your place, treat it with respect. It might just save you one day. Number 6, lion saves the girl. It's a sad fact that a lot of bad things happen in the world, and because of that, we marvel at stories that seem to be impossible, yet are true. Such is the case of 3 lions who actually saved a girl from her kidnappers. This happened in Ethiopia, where a little 12-year-old girl was actually kidnapped by 4 men, with their goal to try and get her to marry one of them. Like I said, bad things happen in the world. They held her captive for over a week, and then the police finally got onto their tail, but they were too late at first. The kidnappers took the girl and ran, but they literally ran into a trio of lions. Oh yeah, it happened. The lions scared the kidnappers away, and when they did, the kidnappers left the girl. Usually you'd think this would end with the lions doing harm to the child, but the opposite happened. Reporters say that the girl was crying when the lions saw her, and they thus believed she was but a young cub, and so they protected her in case the kidnappers came back. That's pretty epic. The police eventually got to where the girl was, and they were certainly amazed by the sight. She was unharmed by the lions, and they willfully let her go so that she could return home. Oh, and the kidnappers? They were caught and tried for their crimes. Number 5, Toby the Golden Retriever. Okay, this is a special story. Yes, there have been numerous cases of dogs saving their owners, or random people in general, but for Toby, he saved his owner in a very specific way that you wouldn't think a dog would be capable of. Toby's owner was just eating an apple when it suddenly went down her throat the wrong way, causing her to choke. Unable to get the apple out of herself, she collapsed onto the ground. This is where Toby came in. Now, if you didn't know, Golden Retrievers are actually one of the most intelligent dog species in the world, and I have to believe this was the cause of him performing the Heimlich maneuver on his owner. That's right, this dog knew how to save his owner from choking. To be fair, he didn't perform the standard version, but oh man, if he did, wow. Rather, he did a modified version of CPR, pressing down on her chest to try and force the apple out. Sure enough, it worked, and his owner was fine. Is Air Bud still a thing? I know it's supposed to be a sports dog, but how about a film about being a doctor? I smell box office dollars. Number 4, Mandy the goat. Let's get back to the farm, but I'm not talking about pigs this time. I'm talking goats. Yes, goats. The creatures that you raise for milk and other reasons, and have a tendency to both be annoying as well as faint. Well, one goat saved his owner's life in a very unique way. This is the story of Noel Osborne, who was doing his usual farm work when something happened, and in the process of this accident, he was actually thrown into the nearby manure pile, which, to be honest, is a fate worse than most. What's worse, though, was that the force of the impact from the accident actually broke his hip, so he was stuck in that manure pile. Because of where he was, it wasn't possible for nearby people to hear him, so along came Mandy, one of his goats. She recognized that he was in trouble and decided to stay by his side until someone came along for help. And she did this for 5 days. Yes, he was stuck in that manure pile for 5 days, and Mandy kept him alive in several ways. First, she used her fur to keep him warm at nights by laying on him, and to keep him at least hydrated, she allowed him to drink milk from her. Eventually, he was found and helped, but it wouldn't have been an option if not for Mandy. Number 3. Mila the beluga whale. Whales are incredibly intelligent creatures, as proven by the ways of their life, living in groups, and how they interact with humans at times. But for one whale, she was capable of telling something was very wrong with her one human and saved her life. In China, there was a banal apnea competition going on. Basically, it's a type of free diving that leads to people getting really deep in the water and they hold their breath for as long as possible. Ironically, Yang Yun was one such competitor, and she was doing it in a beluga whale pond. Well, as she was doing her run, she realized that something was very wrong with her leg. Mainly, she couldn't move it. Unable to swim, she was basically doomed to die. Until a beluga whale named Mila came around and saw she was in trouble. The beluga whale actually clamped onto her leg without causing severe pain, and then brought her back up to the surface so that she could breathe and be taken care of. As if to perfectly cement this moment in history, a shot of Mila grabbing Yang's leg was captured underwater. Number 2. Winnie the cat. Unlike dogs, you don't expect cats to be overly heroic. In fact, one of the reasons people like them is because they're very independent. And yet, when it came time for Winnie to step up and save her owners, she did. So how did this happen? Well, there was a malfunction in the water pipe of her owner's home. And because of that, carbon monoxide actually started to leak into their house. Now, a human can't detect carbon monoxide, but a cat can. The moment Winnie realized what was happening, she ran to her master, Kathy, who was asleep at the time. Her choice was wise, as both Kathy's husband and son were unconscious because of the leak. Kathy struggled to get to her feet, but she did make it, and was able to call for help. The whole family survived the encounter because of Winnie's senses. And let this be a lesson to have both carbon monoxide and dioxide sensors in your home, especially if you don't have a cat. And number 1, Willie the parrot. Ah, parrots. Such interesting birds, and ones that have many stories about them. But this story might just be the top of your list. Willie was owned by a family, one that happened to have a little 2-year-old girl. One day the parents were out and hired a babysitter, who was on one side of the house, and Willie and the baby girl were in the other. The girl swallowed something and started to choke. The babysitter was in the restroom and didn't know anything was wrong, but Willie did. The parrot started to cause a racket, and the babysitter was perplexed about what was going on with Willie. But then Willie shouted, "Mommy, baby!" And the babysitter raced to the room to find the baby with a blue face. The babysitter helped her breathe again, but the real hero in my mind is Willie. Thanks for watching, everyone. What do you think of these tales of animals saving people's lives? Are you surprised by the amount of intelligence and wherewithal to do these things? Which of these stories was your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you next time on the channel.